Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another episode of what is the Arsenal Transfer Show. Joining you every morning at 8 a.m. UK time. Hope. I can't get that sentence out. Hope you're doing well. That was awful. I hope you're doing well. Thank you so much, as always, for tuning in. Thank you, everyone, for catching up as well on audio platforms, Spotify, Amazon, Google, wherever it may be. Thank you so much for doing so. Let's say hello to those joining us in the chat box. Thank you for those that are. Old Dave, Black Shine, Maximius, Mark, Glenn. We've got Paul, Olawale. We've got Old Dave. We've got Pam and Damien and Stevie and Ray, Angela, Jose, and plenty more of you guys and girls in the chat. Thank you so much for tuning in and for joining me. And for those listening, as I say, on catch up as well. Please do, if you haven't done so already, drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you're new around here with those notifications turned on so you never miss a show. Right, without further ado, I think we should probably just go straight into things, to be fair. So let's do that. First of all, Arsenal drew with Spurs last night, 3-3 in the Conti Cup, coming from behind in the end. 2-2 at half-time. Spurs took a lead in the second half, but thankfully, an own goal was what led to Arsenal's equaliser. And then Arsenal went on to win a penalty shootout. The Conti Cup's an interesting kind of tournament because it's done in a group stage system. There's 5 groups that you start off with. Arsenal in a group with Spurs, Southampton, Bristol City and Reading. They've won 2 and drawn 1, which is this game. However, when you draw, there is a penalty shootout, even though it's a group stage. And if you win the penalty shootout, you get an extra point. So Arsenal's extra point means they're still top of their Conti Cup group on 8 points. So, hopefully it will be absolutely fine with Arsenal progressing through. They've still got one more game to play, and it should be relatively straightforward. Spurs are the toughest side in their group. So you'd think that we'd be able to progress through relatively comfortably. But I thought that about the Champions League in the summer, and that didn't happen. So yes, Conti Cup progression still seemingly on the cards. Champions League football, although I've not changed the the text. Champions League football fallout, Champions League fallout from last night. Some very, very interesting results indeed from yesterday's games. Of course, Arsenal could sit back, relax, and enjoy the matches because they already knew they were through as group winners. But I'll run you through the results of last night's games that were, as I say, very intriguing indeed. RB Leipzig and Man City had already progressed through their groups and they beat their respective opponents, Young Boys and Red Star. Antwerp beating Barcelona, very interesting indeed. Porto winning 5-3 in a massive game against Shakhtar Donetsk. It was really important that they won because it meant that they went through as runners-up to Barcelona. You've got Celtic beating Feyenoord in a very interesting game because, of course, they were already out and it was Celtic fun turning on it in the last game. Atletico Madrid beat Lazio, which was an important game for them because they had to win to top their group. Newcastle took a lead against Milan, but then ended up losing 2-1 to fall out of Europe in its entirety, which means that 2 English teams have gone out as group losers, 4th place losers, which could have a significant effect on England's coefficients when it comes to the Champions League. And that 5th place that was expected to be another Champions League qualification spot could be affected, it seems, because of Man United and Newcastle's poor showings in the tournament. Meanwhile, Dortmund drew with PSG. And what that means is, as you can see from the slide on your screen, is that a number of teams Arsenal can now face. Arsenal cannot face PSV because, of course, we've already played them in our group. But in the last 16, we can face any one of these 7 sides: PSG, Inter Milan, Lazio, Napoli, Porto, Leipzig, and Copenhagen. Of course, Arsenal would probably want Copenhagen. However, they do look quite good and have been looking quite good. I mean, they were able to hold Bayern Munich to a draw. They beat Manchester United and obviously beat Galatasaray as well. So maybe not. But there's some good trips there. Copenhagen's a very nice city. Porto as well in Portugal. Naples, Rome, Paris, Milan, and Leipzig. Probably not the worst trip of them all, to be fair. So hopefully Arsenal fans will not have to deal with travelling to Leipzig. But any of the other cities, I think, would be fantastic. AC Milan, though, are said to be pushing for a deal for Jakub Kiwior. That's according to Calcio Mercato. Arsenal would be hoping for a deal in the region of 25 million euros. Arsenal paid a very similar price to Spezia not so long ago, and his lack of game time could be something that not entitles, but certainly encourages, you would think, Kiwior to maybe make that switch to Milan. We'll have to wait and see if that turns out to be the case. I don't think it makes any sense for Arsenal to lose Kiwior. He's a player that I think obviously has got a lot of potential. I think he's got a lot of, quality that he can still give to Arsenal. And I think he's a very good and competent left-sided centre-back backup to Gabriel. And then Arsenal would simply have to go into the market again and find another player. So I don't think it really seems that much of a sensible move for Arsenal to do, even if they were able to get more than 20 million for Kiwior. But I guess we'll have to wait and see on that one. Victor Osimhen is said to be close to a new deal with Napoli, according to Damartio. We've also seen Ben Jacobs double source and confirm this deal as well, and that he is indeed heading closer to a potential new contract with Napoli. It doesn't mean that he's obviously untransferable. Arsenal and any other team can, of course, go in the market and still potentially try and sign him. It's going to cost a hell of a lot of money, though, to be able to do that. So it's very, very interesting, this one, because you'd think that with all the interest building around Osimhen, that maybe he would try and find that move away from the club and find that way into a bigger team like Arsenal, like a Chelsea, even though they're not in the Champions League necessarily. But it's interesting that he's closer to that new Napoli deal than maybe more so leaving Naples. Again, a story that we will continue to follow. Arsenal have said to have the player on their radar, but whether or not they're actually going to move for him remains to be seen. And our last transfer story of the day is, according to some really interesting news coming out of Brazil, Arsenal are being linked to Marcos Leonardo of Santos. Now, for those of you that have been across the recent news regarding Brazilian football, you'll know that after a very, very long time, Santos have been relegated from Brazil's Serie A. And that has obviously led to a number of links with their players to other clubs. Now, Leonardo is a very interesting player, and Fabiano Faro, who's a journalist in Brazil, has reported that Arsenal are preparing a £17 million bid for Marcos Leonardo. Now, he's a 20-year-old centre forward that can play only as a centre forward. He's not like the versatile options that we've been looking at previously. 5'7", 21 goals in 49 games across 4 competitions this year. Of course, the calendar for their games is different compared to us in England. And so they play during a different period of time across a different calendar. And that's a really good return. You have to start thinking that there are perhaps similarities to Julian Alvarez and the deal that saw Man City go to South America to find an option of a striker for, less than 20 million, come into the team, loads of potential, and has proven to be a fantastic signing. That said, Arsenal have not had the best of luck with their deals for young Brazilian players always, although Martinelli has been fantastic. Marquinhos has not necessarily been that much of a success, but it does seem that Leonardo is on a different level to the likes of Marquinhos, and I think would be closer to the deal that saw Arsenal sign Martinelli from Ituano. So mixed results is Arsenal's work in South America, but he is a very exciting young striker, and I think one that will definitely be moving in the summer after Santos's relegation. So keep your eyes peeled onto this one. Very intriguing indeed. And lastly, I wanted to address this because it really did rile me up yesterday. Now, those of you that don't know who Peter Walton is, you should do. He's often a refereeing pundit and was on BT Sport. I don't know if he still is, but he certainly was. Of course, Mike Dean now does it for Sky Sports during their show. But Peter Walton made some very, in my opinion, dangerous comments yesterday, or they certainly came out yesterday. He was doing an article, I think, for the Times, and in that article, he responded to the situation that we discussed in yesterday's show regarding the Turkish referee, Halil Ümit Meler, who was attacked by Ankara Gücü President Faruk Koca. Oh, my voice is going. And in yesterday's show, we talked a lot about kind of the impact of that. We talked about how there is no if, buts, and maybes surrounding I think it was 2 days ago, maybe, surrounding the whole idea that you can make excuses. You can start linking the abuse that has been suffered by the referee in this instance to anything else that's happening. And I'll read you through what Peter Walton's comments were in the Times. He said, every governing body needs to come out immediately and condemn these actions. Officials need to feel supported at time like this. Then maybe the likes of Jurgen Klopp and Mikel Arteta will think twice next time they rush to harangue an official or question his impartiality after the game and incite pylons. However, words and statements only get you so far. The real truth is that we need to be much harsher in terms of punishments we dish out. Only then might we see some real change. Now, those words, I think, are incredibly dangerous. The idea the conflation of the horrific attack that we saw in Turkey and the words that Arteta has said, and to effectively link those two together, I think are incredibly dangerous. The idea that Arteta's words are in some way somehow linked to the idea that we will get to a stage where assaults are happening, I think puts an incredible amount of finger pointing towards both, of course, Arteta and Klopp. Those instances and those actions that we saw in Turkey were awful, and they are to the account of the people that were involved in them. Now, I think that you could argue, is a link between increasing abuse of officials on the field that eventually leads you into a position whereby you reach this stage where things happen. However, to take the words of Arteta, where he describes the officiating decisions as a disgrace and that it's embarrassing, I think goes one step too far. I think it goes one step too far for me, because it's an opinion of Arteta, first of all, to describe it as such. And I think that you can argue that the mistakes and the inconsistencies of referees have been disgraceful, and that it is an embarrassment to the league to make these mistakes on such a consistent basis, because it is extremely costly from both a competitive and monetary standpoint. And to kind of to link the idea that what Arteta has said has led to pylons that then link into these types of actions, I think is really, really awful. I hope that there is some, I hope there is a acknowledgement of these comments by the clubs, by Arteta, by Klopp, and others involved. And I hope that we do not get into a situation where we start to see other managers. And I mean, to name Arteta and Klopp, I think is incredibly wrong, especially when other managers have, done things very similar, said things very similar to Arteta and Klopp in the past. So to single those two out, I think is really, really poor. But that's my thoughts. We'll go to the comment section for a very quick part two. I've got a very busy day ahead of me, so I'll only be taking a few questions before we wrap things up. But let's shoot to part two and your questions right after this. Right, let's jump into the chat box, shall we, and tackle a few of your questions before we come to the end of today's very quick show. We start with Lucas, who says, with Osimhen rumoured to have a 130 million release clause, do you think he's worth that? And do you think it will be activated? It's really difficult, Lucas. It's really difficult to think that a striker can be worth 130 million pounds. I never thought a player that Arsenal would buy would ever be worth 105 million pounds, but Declan Rice has proven me wrong. He has really proven me wrong in that sense. Not because I didn't think he was worth that money. I think it was worth Arsenal going in and obviously doing that. But I also think that there is an argument that no player in the world is worth these crazy amounts of money. But it is the way that the market is going. I don't know if Arsenal would ever go that high, but I never thought Arsenal would go as high as they did for Rice. So it's impossible to know. And it'd be impossible to answer this question until it happened and we saw him at Arsenal. That's the only way we ever know if a player is really worth the money, is if they arrive at the club, they sign for that money and they deliver. So let's see if that happens, I guess is the answer. Darren says Leonardo, Jimenez, or Sesko. Who would be the best target? Again, I'd say it's probably fair to ask me in the summer. I kind of want to wait and see what more Sesko and Jimenez do in this season. It's still very early in the campaign. We're not even at the halfway stage yet. So very, very difficult to know the answers to this. Leonardo, we've got a whole year's worth of data and analytics rather to look at. And I also think obviously in January, there is scope to do that deal where there might not be in the same way in the summer because it would be a new season. And with Santos relegated, that could change Leonardo's situation somewhat. So let's wait and see, as I always say. But certainly, yes, Leonardo is up there and is certainly grabbing my attention. I'm going to do some more research and scouting of the player. Sesko and Jimenez, of course, as well, very much up there amongst players that I'm looking at. Gooner 76, are you going to do a show tonight? Sadly not. We're going to rearrange tonight's show. I was going to be doing one, but our guest has rearranged because they're working tonight, but hopefully early next week we'll be rescheduling for. So make sure you look out for that. But thank you for asking the question. I don't know if we still will do a show or not tonight. I don't think so, but who knows? Anything can happen. Maximir says, I think we should just go out and win our matches, get a siege mentality and use it to fuel our title ambitions. That's the best way to shush all these Waltons and TalkSport and PGMOLs. It's important to remember that, Maximir, this show goes out on TalkSport. It's important to not generalize because I think you can certainly point towards what I think is an incredibly anti-Arsenal individuals that aren't the biggest fan, because I think we provide the balance here, but certainly there are people out there that I feel do treat Arsenal differently to other clubs, and I think it's a real shame the comments that Walton was made. Cole says, "Did you say he's 5'7", Tom?" Yes, I think he's around 5'7" to 5'8" ish. I did a quick check. He's 1.74 meters, and that apparently translates to 5'7" on Google's use of it. So that's what it says on. Yeah, he's 1.74 m. It is what it says. So yeah, that's what it is. If Wiki says 5'9", that's Wiki, but that's what it says on Transfermarkt, that he's 174 meters. So that would translate to around 5'7", 5'8" in height. Reese says Apenda, Leao, Frimpong would be a dream summer. I mean, that would be incredible. I mean, 2 forwards there being signed for huge amounts of money. I don't see that one happening. That would be pretty incredible if it did get done. Vala says, can we make a wish list for Christmas of episode concepts we'd like to get from you for Christmas? I'd like to try on a haul of your whole kit collection. Yeah, I can't see that one happening. To be honest, that would take forever to go through all the kits I've got. And I don't think it's the most enthralling of content out there. But if you want to throw in some ideas into the comment section of content you think I should be doing over Christmas, please do let me know. We'll be doing a show on Christmas Day, of course, at 8 a.m. because nothing is going to stop us from doing these shows. Anyway, I said it was going to be a quick one, and it is. So thank you so much, guys, for tuning in and listening today. It really is appreciated. Do drop a like on the video before you go. Subscribe to the channel. And as always, up the Arsenal.